Good morning. It's Nettie here, and today we are doing an armchair musing, and it just is fitting because I have the energy of a sloth today. Well, that's okay. I practice what I preach. There are certain days that we take it easy and we do what we can, not what we can't. And I'm healthy and all, but I'm a little tired because Fred and I are getting ready to pack up a bunch of stuff at the Oakland house, and we'll be on our way in a few months, but we have a lot to do and some places to go, and Fred is working, and so there's times like this morning when I wake up and say, it's time to reclaim my joy. Now, it's not that life is so bad that I don't have joy, but sometimes that just means sitting in my PJs. I still have my PJs on. I put my earbuds and makeup on, though. Well, you get out the big old mug of coffee. See, that looks bigger than it is, but it's like 16 ounces on the inside. And you fill it up so it stays warm because you don't want to have to get up and pour another cup of coffee. That brings me joy. So, it's true. There are some days that when you wake up thinking, I have so much to do that I don't know where to start. And sometimes that's just things that we build up in our mind. Sometimes there's so much to do, we don't know where to start. So, I did sit down and make a few lists. That always helps. And I started at the top of the list what I'm grateful for, because gratitude makes everything better. When you are thankful for what you have, then what? What's so hard? Now, I teach gratitude and joy and discernment and taking care of yourself and figuring out what you can do, not what you can't do. I do that all the time. But, it's like teachers and pastors. They'll say, oh, I'm a good teacher. I can teach you this, but practicing it is hard. So I've made that a point this year to really work hard at practicing what I preach. And, it's taken a load off. A weight has come off because it's basically simplifying. Sometimes simplifying your life is about taking the weight off of what's in your brain and your head. Because anything that you hold up here sifts down to the heart and you become burdened. And have you ever just sat there and thought, well, what do I have to be so sad about? Or what am I so bummed about? Sometimes it's just because we haven't sat and discerned what's going on. For some of you, maybe you journal. Some people just simply keep that gratitude journal, 5 things a day. At the end of the day, well, some do at the beginning of the day, but in the morning, I'm not grateful for anything but my bed or my coffee. So, it's because I'm not awake yet. And we're all different. So there isn't a right and wrong way to do this. So don't let anybody tell you differently. Because if you have to buy the notebook and they say, then make sure you put the coffee on at 4 a.m. and sit there before everybody gets up. Well, it ain't going to happen at Nettie's house. And so I'm giving you permission to just do it. There aren't those kind of rules, really. If you find yourself needing rules, like, I need the structure, Nettie. Well, then I'll help you do that. But that's just basically follow your week for a day. Just like you do for a budget. If you're doing a family budget, you have to keep receipts for a month. And then you write down everything you spend your money on, not worrying about, being frugal or whatever. You just do what you do. And at the other end of the month, you go through everything and realize where you can pare down and where you can, save money, and then you're able to budget your money. So it's the same thing with your time and with your needs as far as taking care of yourself. Follow yourself for a week. Write down what you do. And and figure out where is the time where you feel you can be the most reflective and the most helpful to yourself. For me, it's between 10 and noon in the morning because I stay up late doing art. I've told you that before. And so I get up late. I get up around 9 o'clock, sometimes 9:30, but I do a little bit of reading. And so I figure that time while I'm having my coffee and I'm not musing at you, I sit here and I think about things. And what I can do now is start writing a few things down, having a to-do list of things we need to do for, the eventual move, and writing down my task list. And then after this, I go check my email and try to respond and plan my week for recording and my sermon, Nettie. And, you find out that when you write it down, you don't have quite as much to do as you thought you did when you woke up in the middle of the night with everything on your mind. Yeah, that happens. I think once we get on top of it, then we can start out our days a little more joyfully. So what brings you joy? If you start thinking about what brings you joy, it's a little bit easier to sift out the things that don't, or manage the things that don't, because not everything we have to do in life is going to bring us joy. We have to be real about that. For some who are going through terrible trials or tribulations, it's hard for them to find joy. But there's ways of sifting through all the bad and trying to find a purpose to the sadness and trying to find a gift in the pain. We've gone over that too, but today I just simply want to focus on how you can capture joy. And everybody has different viewpoints and different methods and processes. I'm saying simplify. Try to take out the things in your life that just don't bring you joy, or it's like my mom used to say, if you get the chores done first thing in the morning, you got the rest of the day to play. I mean, that can be bad too, because for a long time as an artist, if I didn't have my chores done, I wouldn't do art. Well, no. Art has to become a top priority in Nettie's life. Just like doing these videos. I stop what I'm doing and I do it because it brings me joy. And if I'm joyful and start out in a joyful mood, then I can get those chores done a little bit faster. There's no reason not to do something that brings you joy in order to get on with the day. Or for some, get through the day. On those hard days, instead of sitting here and just, weeping because I can't go do art, or just being in a place where I'm just wanting to be there and I'm not. Well, I'm the one that made the decision to do my chores first. And of course, I think that comes from old patterns and ways that our mothers did things. And I was a stay-at-home mom, but I wasn't as diligent as my mother in getting her chores done and then sitting back and reading a book. And, it's taken me many years to realize, well, she's different. She's wired differently than I am. So I've just got the freedom now to work in my schedule and not somebody else's. So what Nettie does isn't necessarily going to fit your lifestyle. What I'm trying to do is give you permission to find your joy the best way you can with the processes that suit your lifestyle and your families. That's pretty simple. You can read every book in the world, but the answers are going to come from within. So today I wanted to share with you this moment that I had with my father-in-law before he passed. This is 2 years before he passed, and he was beginning to show some signs of dementia. As sharp as a tack, could play cards, play dominoes, and his memory didn't really go till right before he passed 2 years later. But his symptoms kind of manifested in anger. And I think it was a frustration thing, like he knew that he'd forgotten something or couldn't think of the word, and it'd frustrate him, and he'd break out in anger. And so this particular day, or in this particular time, I was writing a blog to my joy group, the group for my retreat. I was doing a Lenten study on joy, the joy in Lent. And it was sustaining me through this visit, I tell you, because every time I wrote something about that day in Lent, about joy, which is a subject in itself. Some people say, how do you find joy in Lent? How do you not find joy in Lent is Nettie's feeling. So anyway, the writing that late at night after everybody was quiet and in bed sustained me through helping my father-in-law through the day. And we were particularly close. And that could be a story I tell sometime. That's just precious to me. That he embraced me and my oddness. I mean, this is in Ohio, and I'm a city girl from Portland, and our differences were vast, including politics. So what I'm going to do is read my entry to the blog about this. It's very short, and then I want to say a few words. This was March 28th, 2015. Day before yesterday was an extremely trying day emotionally. My father-in-law's dementia manifests itself more in flash anger moments than loss of memory, most times with no seemingly rhyme or reason. We weathered through the day cautiously and lovingly, avoiding conflict and trying to remember that a disease does not define a person. My nightly post to my joy blog was a simple message that night, but it spoke to my heart so much, I was able to gather strength from God and press on the next day. In the morning, Dad was reflective, and I know he was thinking about his behavior as he often did. It saddened him. It saddened him so much that he had hurt us. So his memory was good enough to know that he had hurt us. We spent the morning together, just the two of us. I worked on a website and he watched TV louder than I ever thought possible for someone who was sitting a foot away. I talked to God a lot. I knew I was needing to change my response to some of the things that Dad would say. He and I are polar opposites when it comes to politics, but it has never stopped us from having a good, healthy debate. Now he says things just to start a fight, not just with me. And he will fight to prove he is right, whether he's right or not. It seemed to me he had lost his joy. And I had lost someone who loved the debate, but loved me more. As I prayed, I was reminded not to assume anything, and an idea formed in my head and my heart. Can't say it was a knock-me-down brainstorm. It was a still, quiet nudge to ask him this question: what brings you joy? So last night at dinner, we neared the end. I took advantage of the thus far peaceful day and asked. I told everyone at the table that I was writing my blog for our Lenten journey, and I was going to post my answers. I asked the question, what brings you joy? He stopped eating and just looked up at me. He said, joy? What brings me joy? I love to watch people laugh. And his eyes met mine. it was with such a deep look of love, an abiding love. I stymied in my response. Then he wept just slightly and said, "You. I love it when you laugh, and it makes me laugh." Then it was as if he had snapped out of it and said, "And dogs." So it's me and dogs that brought him joy. He says, "Nothing is better than a dog who loves you." How awesome was that? By companioning with God the night before, while writing my blog, seeking an answer, I was nudged to do a very simple thing: communicate. Well, then, I went on, and Mom said, "Company, I love company. I wish they'd never leave, and I just love cooking for them." And then my brother-in-law had a really simple answer: a good meal. Down-home answers, straight from the farmland of Ohio. Today, ask someone who may be down, what brings you joy? Don't forget to answer it yourself every day. That's the truth. So if you start your day out with what brings me joy, which could be a gratitude list, but even in the middle of the day, when you just feel like you've been stopped in your tracks because you're not happy, you may be anxious, ask yourself, what brings me joy? I was reminded of Romans 12:12, a wonderful scripture that says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer." I think that perfectly describes how I went into the moment with my dad-in-law. I was being patient in hope. And of course, anybody working with someone with dementia, patience is really extremely important. Patient in affliction. Think of my father-in-law, how patient he had to be with his own affliction, but had enough to know to discern his feelings. Be faithful in prayer. I just prayed. As first responders in love, we want to work from love, but joyful love. And all kinds of love, and a love of empathy and sympathy and understanding and compassion and justice and mercy. Love comes from all those places. Bringing light and love to others isn't about just bringing joy to ourselves. It's about bringing joy to the world. And in doing so, we are lit with joy. It's an authentic joy, not something we have to seek. It just happens. Love is powerful. And joy is a companion we want to keep. What brings you joy? Be the light. Be the first responder in love to all you wish to bring joy. And remember that I joyfully love you always. Bye-bye. Don't forget to show me a little love by subscribing, giving me a thumbs up, and sharing with your friends on YouTube and Facebook.